Hi there. In this video, we'll be covering how to write a business book. I want you to rethink everything you think you know about book writing, because I have an efficiency tip that can help you make progress with your book in the time it takes you to watch this video. By the end of this video, you will learn why originality matters, how to set your message apart, and some writing tips to help you make progress on bringing your book forward. And stay tuned until the end of the video for a free opportunity. Let's dive in. There are so many business books out there already. So many. That's not to discourage you from writing a book. That's to encourage you to be original. You don't want to recreate something that somebody's already written about, somebody's already done. It requires you to step outside, to bring a different focus to this book, to be different, to have a different message, to go against the grain. If your book is redundant, if your book is similar to another book that's already out there, it's not going to have the impact that you want it to. It's going to fall short. It's going to fall flat. You don't want it to fall flat. You want it to stand out and be different. You want it to be original. In some cases, that can mean being controversial, and that's okay. You know, some controversy can help to drive book sales. It can help to brand yourself differently, to make you thought of in a new light. Court controversy. Embrace it. Encourage it. Your take should be a little bit different than everybody else's. You know, if your take is the same as everybody else's, why would somebody else want to read your book? Why would somebody else want to promote your book? No, you need to say something profound and different and unique and special. And tapping into your unique message as a business leader is going to help you write a better book, because your experiences are unique to you. Your perspectives, your journey, your ups and downs, those are all unique. Something along your path is worth sharing and worth putting into a book. And it's up to you to really unlock that message and tell your story in the most powerful way possible. A lot of the power in your message is going to come through in being vulnerable. I know it's kind of antithetical to think about being vulnerable in a business book, because in a business book, you're thinking about success. You're thinking about all the things you did well. It's going to really bring people in and help connect with the reader to be vulnerable and talk about your struggles and explore the ups and downs. I remember one book that I worked on with a person, an author named Brent, and it was really interesting. Brent was a CEO of a company, a successful company, and he took over the business from his father. And he went into this without a really good perspective of what his leadership style was. And because of that, because of the insecurities he had as a leader, because of the doubts he had, it forced him to create a new paradigm. It forced him to go to conferences and connect with people and learn new things. And through that process, he really learned about leading with heart. He learned about a different style of leadership, you know, one that he wasn't necessarily accustomed to at the beginning of his career. And through that process, he was able to guide his company to new places and to succeed where he might have failed otherwise. In order to be successful with that book, Brent needed to be honest and open about the struggles he faced early in his career, when he wasn't really the leader that he thought he could have been, when he wasn't as successful as a leader as he became later. You need to be able to overcome something to get to the end goal. And for him, that was, you know, unlocking the true power of the leader within with heart. You know, heart isn't something that immediately comes to mind when you think of leadership. You know, so it was really important for him to dive deep and kind of explore what made his story unique and different and special. And that's what I thought really worked about his book. You know, I thought it was really exciting to see the journey that he took in leadership. And that journey, the ups and downs, the struggles, are what readers can connect to. So his journey was successful in the book form because of his vulnerability. If he had just talked about taking over the company and taking the company to new heights and not talking about the vulnerabilities and the struggles and the doubts, why would somebody want to read that book? What would be the power in that message? Now, there was a message and a power that came from being vulnerable. And it was awesome to be able to explore that vulnerability with him and talk it through and think about it and bring it forward in the best way possible. You know, one of the neatest things about Brent's story, for me, was we worked together for a long time on his book and shoring it up and making it stronger. And afterwards, he still had doubts about it. And he kept working at it and working at it and working at it. And he, took it to a new place. He took it to a new place even beyond where I worked with him. It's not always common that an author will work with a ghostwriter, then continue forward with the book on their own, but he did, and I was proud of him for that. I thought it was a reflection of his leadership, in a sense. The fact that he didn't quite feel ready and confident with the book that we had put together, and he wanted to explore different things. I was just really proud of the book that he ended up publishing and proud of the vulnerability he showed, because I think those kind of messages can really resonate with readers and really help you write a great business book. The beginning of the writing process is all about the foundation. You think about building a house or baking a cake, and you really start with the ground level. You start with the basics. In the sense of a book, you're focusing on hook, audience, and outline. The hook really is the takeaway for the reader. How are they going to carry forward with this message in their life? What impact is it going to have for them? And you should be able to answer that in a sentence, or two at most, but really one sentence. Clarity, clarity, clarity. Be as clear as possible, understanding as possible, and through that clarity, you can then really tap into your audience. Who is the person that you want to read this book? Who is the very specific person that you're targeting? Your book is not for everybody. You do not want to write a book for everybody. A book for everybody is a book for nobody. You really want to figure out who your audience is, what they're going to take away from the book, and then outline it in a way that's going to carry forward the messages and the lessons and the themes from beginning to end. So all of these things are working in unison, working together to create something more powerful, to create something stronger, and ultimately to create something that lasts and resonates. You want to put out a book that is standing the test of time, that stands beside all the other great business books that have been out there. You really need to put your personal stamp on it, but do you need to understand the takeaway? I think about a business book like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And that's a book that you understand it as soon as you see the title. A book really resonates, and a book like that lasts for generations because the author understood what he was trying to say and what the reader would take away from it, what the message was. And unlocking that message, unlocking that clarity is going to make this book resonate for you. You don't want your book to be one of those books that just gets lost, forgotten, just overlooked. It's tough enough to stand apart on Amazon or on other book publishing or sales platforms. But you really need to figure out why your book is unique, why your book's different, how it compares and contrasts with other books in the space. And by you being able to put your personal spin on it, you can really help to guide it forward in a positive way. One of the most powerful ways to get writing done is not from just sitting at the keyboard and finding your time for 2-hour blocks and making sure the light's coming through the window in the right way and getting your coffee at the right temperature and doing all these things and setting everything up. It's about writing right now, doing writing sprints. I'm talking about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and literally just picking a topic and writing. This is not about clean writing. It's not about editing. You can do that later. This is simply about getting the words out as fast and as smoothly and just in a rush. This is about getting the words out and just spewing them out onto the page. It's about just brain dumping onto the page for 10 minutes. It's hard to find the time to really dive into writing. If you're a business leader or CEO, you don't have the time to sit there for hours on end, sitting at your keyboard and typing away. But do you have 10 minutes? I bet you do. And I bet you could get a lot done in 10 minutes of time. Maybe it's 100 words, maybe it's 200 words. Maybe eventually you move it up to 30 minutes, and you can get 500 words done in that time. It really depends on how quickly you can write. I remember when I used to work in New York City, and I lived outside of the city. So I would take the train, the Metro North End, to and from work every day. And it was 35 minutes from getting on the train to getting at Grand Central. And I would do writing sprints that whole time. I would do a 35-minute writing sprint from the entire train ride, and I would write 400 or 500 words, and then I would go about my day. And it was awesome to be able to get the writing done. You know, I think a lot of times when we think about a book, we think about the overarching bigness of it all, the weight of it all. This isn't about the weight of it all. It's not about finishing every chapter today. It's about doing a little bit of writing incrementally, today, tomorrow, the next day after that. You know, you think about a 100,000 word book, and the weight of that is immeasurable. It's a huge amount. But then think about writing 275 words every day for a year, and that's 100,000 words. It's the same thing. But if you break it up into increments, you can get it done. These are probably things you experienced in your business career too. You know, the hardest tasks are not always done on a big stage, on a big scale. They're done in a very small level, incrementally, day by day. So writing sprints are one way to get a lot of writing done. The other way is to use audio transcription, audio recordings, and automatic transcription. So basically what you could do if you go for a walk, you could go for a walk and talk into a recorder or your phone and literally upload that audio recording, talking about different areas of your story or your book, upload that audio recording to an automatic transcription service like Otter or Rev. They're both online. And within minutes, you could have an automatic transcription of text. Obviously, that text has to be cleaned up and ironed out, but over the course of an hour or an hour and a half, you could gather 10,000 words of material. I mean, that's a huge amount of material. You know, I remember at one point I was writing down some ideas about book ghostwriting, a topic that's near and dear to me. And I wanted to just get the ideas out of my head. So I went for a walk for an hour and a half. And I literally had 10,000 words to work with when I was done. And I could download it and play around with the text and move things around. Easy peasy. It's an awesome way to make progress. You know, it's an awesome way to build the foundation of a book without having to sit behind the keyboard and, you know, use all of this brain power and get all these brain ideas out of your head and onto the page. There's multiple paths forward to writing a book. You could write this completely independent on your own. You could write it with some help in the form of a writing coach, someone guiding you along and helping you along. And you could use a ghostwriter, a book ghostwriter who actually will do the writing for you. And a lot of times people think that book ghostwriters are just operating independently, like they're just going off and doing writing and coming back. And that's not really how this works. It's a very collaborative process. You know, when I work as a book ghostwriter with an author, we will meet for about an hour a week, every week. And over the course of a couple months, you know, 3 to 6 months, we will gather a draft. We will get a draft together. You know, we will collaborate. We will talk through ideas. I will take those ideas and turn them into chapters. It's a very collaborative process, and it's a fun process. You know, if you think about the idea of being somebody who's very busy, you probably don't have the time to sit behind the keyboard all day writing. But you probably do have the time to meet for an hour or half an hour every week and build momentum with the book while working with the ghostwriter who's then going off and doing the writing after meeting with you. So there's all these different levers to pull and all these different opportunities for you to choose in choosing the right path for you. This is really about figuring out what works best for you, your writing talent, your time ability to commit to the project, the cost overall. All of these factors come into play, but it's important for you to consider what the path forward looks like and make sure that you're choosing the right path for you, one that's reasonable for you. When I think of writing a business book, I think of one of my other clients. He was a CEO in the tech space, and it was interesting. I would meet with him and another executive in his company, and we would all work together on this book. We would talk it through. After the meetings, I would go and write a new chapter. And these meetings and deliveries would come at different intervals. You know, every week we would meet, every week we would get new material. And it was awesome to be able to build that book together, to take these weekly meetings and turn it into a book in 3 months. It literally took 3 months. We had 10 to 12 meetings. We made tons of progress together. It was a fun, easy, efficient, frictionless process. And in the end, you know, the CEO has this awesome book that he can then use to promote in speeches and other events, and he can position himself in this space to be the thought leader, to be the expert, to be the person, and not only him, but the company. Now it's the company branding. So you have the CEO and the company establishing themselves in this very specific space and really creating a moat. If you think of a company as a castle, like here's this moat. Now they built this moat. Now they are the go-to company in this specific area for this specific purpose. And it was awesome to be able to collaborate and think about the fact that 12 hours of your time could turn into a book that changes your life. Like there's so many opportunities there and so many opportunities to write a business book that resonates and that really stands the test of time. If you want to learn more about how to write a business book, I want you to check out a course that I recorded. It's called Good Book Blueprint. Just check out goodbookblueprint.com. You can click the link below. It's a free course. I recorded it with a ghostwriting client of mine, Nate Woodbury. He's a friend, awesome guy. And we were able to talk through really the entire book writing process, the entire ghostwriting process from beginning to end, and looking at all the steps it takes to write a successful book and publish a successful book. And I just think you'll take a lot away from it. There's a lot of great lessons in there and great tips for you as you consider the right path forward and writing an awesome business book. Remember, good ghostwriting makes great books. I'm Dan Good. Thanks for watching.